Planning for young kids. Welcome to Shenkman Education. My name is Marty Shenkman, and we're going to talk about planning for young children. Good backdrop, huh? So what do you do to plan when you have minor children? Couple of things. First, many people will answer that question by saying, oh, I got a will, I named a guardian. That's great. What happens if you're incapacitated? And that's not the whole discussion. Too many people, and this is the single biggest mistake in all of estate planning, think if they signed a document, even if the document's great, they've done what they need. Not the case. Prime example, you have young children, God forbid you die prematurely, is there enough money? Usually young folks have kids, and young people are still building typically their careers. Unless they're trust fund babies, they don't have the wealth to make sure their kids can be cared for. Buy life insurance. If you're in your 30s or 20s, even 40s, in reasonable health, a 20-year term life insurance policy is probably very inexpensive. Get the insurance coverage to make sure that if, God forbid, you die, there's the financial resources for your kids. That may be more important than any of the legal documents you do. Not saying the legal documents aren't important, but you've got to make sure they're provided for. So evaluate your life insurance coverage. Evaluate disability insurance coverage. And I don't sell insurance. Why? If you're working, you die and you have $1 million term policy or whatever number you get, and it's not that expensive, financially your kids are protected. We have to talk about where that money goes to protect them too. But what if you're incapacitated, you're disabled, and you can't work? Now you're not bringing in income. What are you and the children going to live on? So evaluate disability policy. And if you get a long waiting period and not all the bells and whistles, you may be able to get a policy that's affordable, but that's really important to address. Next consideration, and this is not a legal form in the typical package of forms. I kind of made it up because it just seemed to be a gap in what estate planning documents that are traditional do. I call it an emergency child medical form. And frankly, where I got the idea when my kids were in grade school, this school had us fill out a form about can you give them aspirin and who do you call in an emergency. And I took that form and I spoke to half a dozen different pediatricians, emergency room doctors, put some common sense into it and developed a form, a document that deals with some of the practical issues that come up if a child has a health issue. It's not uncommon for the parents, whatever the family arrangement is, not our topic, to go away on vacation and leave the kids with Uncle Joe or, a family friend or whatever. Do they have any legal authority to care for the kid? No. Give them an authorization. Do they know what allergies or needs the kid has? No. Give them that information. Create a simple little form to address that. So an emergency child medical form to authorize someone to act if parent or parents are both gone, not dead, but away, and information. What do the kids like? What kind of toys? What can we do to make the kid feel comfortable if mom and dad aren't here or the parents aren't here to help us? So get an emergency child medical. Check your insurance. Another good point. You need a will. A lot of people do revocable trust. That's not the discussion today, whether it's a will or a revocable trust. Set up a trust for the children or child. You don't want to have a 5-year-old getting money outright because you don't have a will that creates a trust for them. If that happens, the court may intercede and may appoint a court-appointed guardian. The money may end up in a court-appointed fund. You don't want any of that. Have a trust for the child form. If you have more than one child, practical thing to do, unless you have a lot of wealth, if you have enough wealth, and I don't know what that number is, you can set up a separate trust for each kid. If you don't have a large amount of wealth, maybe the best thing to do is set up initially a pot or single trust where all the kids are beneficiaries, and when the youngest kid turns age 18, then divide it into separate trusts. That way, you don't have to figure out who pays what portion of a home or things that benefit all the kids. And it also helps you allocate resources, financial resources, to help the kids when they're having greater needs. Maybe an older kid needs braces, a younger kid is still in school while the older kids are now working. So a pot or sprinkle trust, one trust for everyone, that it's when the youngest is 18 breaks into separate trusts. Not complicated to do. So you want to do that. Another final point that's very critical, and it's the obvious one everyone knows, but it's often not done well. You need to name a guardian. A guardian is a person who will be responsible for the child. Find out in your state, do you name a guardian for the person, a guardian for the property? Really, it's probably a guardian for the person because the trust we just talked about should hold all the property. When you name a guardian, make sure you think through the people you name. Name a successor. It's probably one of the biggest mistakes. I name my brother Joe, but what if he isn't able to serve? You got to name a successor guardian. If you don't name a guardian, a court's going to appoint somebody, not what you want. Next, don't name a couple. I name my brother Joe and his wife Jane. Don't do that. What if they get divorced? Now they're going to have a fight in their divorce over who's the guardian? Name individuals. If you feel you have 3 different siblings to name and they're all married and you want them to only serve as the guardian if they're a couple, then say that. I name my brother Joe so long as he's married at the time. That way, if he's divorced or his wife passes, then it goes to the next guardian who may have a family unit if you feel that's important to you. Write, and the final point we're going to end, write a letter of instruction. You really need to write a letter. There's nothing the legal documents are going to do to give your heartfelt wishes about how the child should be raised, what religious issues, what moral values, what you want for the child, what life experiences. Pour your heart out. It's not an easy letter to write, but it'll be invaluable guidance for whoever is helping, both the trustee with the money and the guardian who's responsible for the child. Thank you for joining me, and remember all the videos on Shenkman Education are for educational purposes only. Don't take any legal or other action without consulting a professional.